I'm gonna need a blurb for Wednesday, and we're gonna be calling Jordan. So if you could on page 3 make some notes for yourself on your.
What's important to so the audio gets the last stream is we're gonna want him to turn on his and the guest mic also need to be on. And they don't need to be in these need to be in program 1 to get over. They for some reason don't. They just need to be in program 2 or 3 or whatever. So let me just do that. They could be in program 1, doesn't hurt. But you normally my dad's voice a little lower than the guests, and pretty good. Make sure his headphones. Okay, we got like a minute. Okay, so that's the news breaks. That means we're a minute out. Cool. All right. We're good. I just want to make sure I put that. I guess I'll go and I'll start the camera recording. So do you remember how to do that, Seth?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a button around over here. It's a red button with a little dot. Okay. So if I do that, boom, the red dot goes on. Okay, let's go start those recordings. Okay, so your headphones are here.
Cool.
And you're going to want to talk nice and close to the mic, and your little volume, their volume's controlled by a knob right there.
Cool.
Zach, once you get this underway, the toner, the printer ran out of toner, so you don't have a full script. Okay. So headphones, and we're up. Phone on, done, and here we go. And the volume is where it plugs in, where the wire plugs in.
Thanks. Welcome to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to us on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer. Thanks for joining us for another broadcast week here on the Peak. This is Business and Culture Monday, and we're going to be getting into the food culture here, the food scene in Colorado Springs. What do you think of it? Is it enough? Is it too much? Is it lacking? Well, we're going to be discussing that. I'll let you know who the guest is in a little bit. What do we do here at the Peak? Why do we even exist? Well, the media seems to have failed us. I'll just say that. I don't think anybody really trusts the media. People are turning away from it. They're turning toward influencers, really opinion. But we can't live like this, folks. We need to have journalism, real journalism, and that's what we're building out here. Admittedly, we're transparent here. We say the quiet stuff out loud. We're still we started in January of last year, so we've been on the air, not quite a year and a half, still in the startup phase. And when you do that, you have a vision, and then you seek to get to the vision. And, when you build a business, hey, it is business day, and this is a business here, doing a radio program. It's not just me getting in front of the mic. There's a ton, really every facet of a business is in radio, is trying to build toward it. And you get toward obstacles. Things aren't working out exactly as you had thought that they would. And then, you veer here, you veer, but you keep going because the vision is what drives you. And the vision of the Peak is that we are going to have tens, if not hundreds, of citizen journalists across our region, volunteers, passionate about what they're doing on this platform, on the broadcast show, on the web, in print and audio and video, telling stories as only local people can, people who know the area, people who know the people who are making news in the area, people who care about the area. So lying or misrepresenting, although I'll have to say, as we try to tell the news here, people don't seem to have that big a problem, especially when talking about people they don't like, about trash talking in this town. And it's very hard because you talk to people. I'm going off on a little tangent here. You talk to people that and they this person, you go to talk to that person and they criticize you. It's like, what's going on? Even getting to the bottom of a story here is difficult. Maybe that's one of the reasons the stories aren't being told. But the more people we train, the more people we deputize, the more, shoe leather out there, actual reporting, the more that we can take the media back. And that's a good segue to a webinar that I'm very excited that we're doing this coming Thursday, May 22nd, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Invite people from all over the country because we're going to speak this vision of the peak to everyone. Historian and author Bill Federer, sometimes known as America's Historian, is going to be co-hosting this webinar with me. It's called How We Take the Media Back, a grassroots plan for restoring trust in American journalism. And Bill is going to be giving the history about centuries-old history about how the media betrayed us and got to this point. And then I'm going to be taking the lead on presenting this whole vision that we're doing here with the peak and the different parts, the production model, the human resources model, the financial model, and encourage people. We should do this around the country. People should be taking over the radio and doing this in their hometown. And so go to thepeak.news. That's our website, and you'll see the link, or go to thepeak.news/webinar. Sign up. It's this Thursday at 6 p.m. So we have as our guest, very, very excited to have as our guest on the show today, Michelin-trained chef Joe Bonavita, who's new in town because he was brought in by Mitch Yellen, who you've heard me mention on the show. Mitch has sort of a food empire here. He has the Pinery, he has a Trainwreck, Garden of the Gods Cafe, Vine and Wheel, Dad's Donuts, and Mitch is a sponsor of the program. He's a friend of mine, sponsor of the program. We've done events down there. We did Taste of the Peak down there. We just did a Passover Seder down there. But there's a place he bought years ago. It was called the Pinery North. Didn't work out so well, but Mitch doesn't quit. And so just yesterday, the Homestead Collective opened there, and it's, we'll get into more detail on it, but I'll say it's an upscale food court. Let me just sort of say that. But Joe Bonavita is the executive chef over the entire operation. Chef Joe, thanks for being on the Peak.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. And we're going to be talking about elevating the culinary scene in the Springs, cooking with quality ingredients, how to do this at home even, and of course we'll be talking about the Homestead Collective. I just stopped by there this morning. Really great build, really nice vibe in there, and I love it. We wanted to have Mitch on the show. We'll get him here eventually, but happened to have Joe Bonavita of the Homestead Collective here. Also, in the next segment, investigative journalist Jordan Baldwin is going to be reporting from the beginning of the hate crime hoax trial in Denver. Okay, that's how we do it. Next, page 2. Call Jordan, please. Zach? Call. And remind me to push the button. Okay, so a couple of things. One, we're never completely offline because we're streaming. So as far as radio, really good radio is, I see it as voyeuristic, like you're in a coffee shop, you're listening to, people are having a cool conversation and you're listening in.
Like eavesdropping.
So it's passive, but it's exciting. You're getting information, things like that. So it's only voice.
Okay.
So there's an over the top push because people can't see you, facial expressions, everything. So if you do a normal chill, it sounds a little sleepy because voice has to carry everything. Mm-hmm. So give it a little bit more over the top. Vocalizing emotion helps, sort of like radio theater. It's like, just anything, because or else it stays in the booth. So that's overall just the vibe of it. And you can hear me doing that, and we just sort of feed off each other. As far as timing goes, because it is broadcast, it's not like a podcast. We have time. We have time breaks. So this is the universal wrap it up, 10 or 15 seconds. Land the plane, give it back to me. I got to get to the next question or go to commercial.
Sure.
If you hear music, that's my 30-second warning track to commercial. Okay. So if you're still talking, same deal, 10 seconds, finish up. When we get to the monologue, you'll have about 4 minutes after I introduce you. So I'll give you these hand cues of 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
And then this means 30 seconds. So it's better than a wrap up because it gives you time to sort of put a final chapter. So you'll see as I give you those cues that that you'll self-edit, you'll figure out where you are, but you should definitely have notes in front of you so you make sure you hit them all and you know where you are as we go. I think, did I hit on all that? Yeah. That's just it. I'll try to use up all the time. If you don't, I'll ask a follow-up question.
Sure.
So if you fall short, and otherwise, just we're having fun and we're talking stuff. We say the quiet stuff out loud, so feel free to say anything. Like
Okay.
if it say what you mean.
Sure.
Let's be real here. Not talking about real stuff is why we don't fix things.
Yep.
And then nobody wants to live here. So we do it on every realm. We might as well do it with the food.
Sure. Yeah.
Also.
I would agree with that.
So where were you before this?
South Florida. I was in,
where?
I was in Florida. Fort Lauderdale, Miami. Palm
Oh, that's
Beach.
where I'm.
Yeah.
My wife's from Miami. We lived there many
Cool.
years.
Yeah. It's been 10 years down there. But from New York originally.
Okay. The city or?
Grew up in Long Island.
Okay.
But most of my career was in Manhattan and Chicago.
Okay. Okay. So let's see. What's going on here? Okay, we're back in 30 seconds. Okay, is Jordan on?
He didn't answer. I rang 2 times, went to voicemail. I'll text him and he can call on my phone. But I'll give you thumbs up or down if I have.
Okay, this is really not cool.
But I'll
I
try and do that.
okay, no, I mean get him right now. Okay. Okay. Live radio is a little crazy. Okay, here we go. Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're joining us on Business and Culture Monday, and we're talking about the food scene. Here we have as our guest and co-host for the hour, Joe Bonavita, executive chef at Homestead Collective. But this is our headline segment, and as we, I went off. Yep, I went off on a tangent, and then I went off on another tangent during the last one. What I wanted to say is that, when you're building a business, you have a vision, you build toward it, and we want to do a lot of journalism self-created. But admittedly, this first year, a lot of guests, a lot of reading articles from other press that we then say, we sort of ridicule a little bit, but we're still taking news from them. But we're building out our citizen journalist program, our internship program, and we have now one of the big things. If you've been following us, back in November, we found this big news story that the rest of the media sort of ignored, which is this Mayor Yemi hate crime hoax story going on here, where our mayor was accused of being involved in a hate crime hoax during the election and knowing about that it was going on before, during, and after. He claims that he didn't. There's a claim that he lied to the FBI. He says that he didn't. But the 2 of the 3 people who were accused in this hate crime hoax, their trial starts today, and we have Jordan Baldwin, who's up in Denver, and also through the week we have a whole bunch of citizen journalists who we've trained are going to be covering this trial. So Jordan, are you there? Yeah, yes, I can. So you're up in Denver, you're at the trial, but we heard that there's going to be you have to be in the room taking notes because there's no audio recording. There's not going to be any transmissions from this thing. Is that accurate? Oh, real? Okay, now what I've read is that Mayor Yemi may be the very first person to testify. Do you have any corroboration on that?
Mayor Yemi was going to be testifying testifying. They did not mention his name specifically, but there was one witness that was heavily criticized that was an expert on cross burnings in America, and I do believe the judge did strike that witness and also ordered a sequestration order around all witnesses. So basically, they didn't say that Yemi would be testifying at all.
Okay, and so this is Derek Bernard and Ashley Blackcloud. Deanna West, she had her. Well, what happened with her? She was the third defendant in this. Did she make a plea?
Yeah. So Deanna West did reach a deal with the government, and they did dismiss the charges, I believe. So it's just the two defendants left. That's when they put in their motion to sever, but they are going to be tried together. And like I said, they are married. But I will say that when the judge struck the expert witness on cross burnings, she did mention something to the effect of, I would think if you would want to establish intimidation or an act from a victim, that the best person to establish that would be the victim themselves.
Well, and as we've talked about this, when we started covering this back in November, because it seems that it was a hoax done to the benefit of Mayor Yemi, not to seek to intimidate him, that his opponent, Wayne Williams, was actually in a way the victim of this. Is there any, it's interesting bringing on someone who's an expert in cross burnings, but this was not a cross burning to try to intimidate Mayor Yemi. Does anyone think that?
Interesting because just the topic in general is being brought up quite a bit. The jurors don't really know all the details of the case at this point. All they know is just some of the facts around it. So they're learning these things for the first time. And there was one statement said by one of the potential jurors today, that it's hard to disassociate burning crosses and intimidation. And it would take quite a bit of direction to talk me out of this. Now, they asked who agreed with that, and about seven more potential jurors raised their hand.
Now, two very, very interesting things that go along with this, and we're going to have people up there all week. So tune in every day. We're going to be doing in this headline segment, doing an update from the Capitol. Hopefully, two things I just want to mention to listen out for. One is that the defense that they've said that they're going to do is that this was a hoax, but they had the First Amendment right to do it, and they didn't hate anybody, and so it can't be a hate crime, and it was just a political stunt, which is protected under First Amendment. That's the first thing. The other thing is this Derek Bernard is currently serving life plus in jail for hiring someone to murder a local rapper. And yet the person he supposedly hired was acquitted and set free a few weeks ago. And yet he got life imprisonment for hiring who? And is that even relevant to this case? But it seems everybody's accusing him of being, this awful person, but he went to jail for life, but they don't have the murderer of the rapper Flyjack.
Yes, and that was talked about as far as what could be brought up in relation to the other case and how important it was in reference to this case. And the judge says that the only thing that could be mentioned were the date of the charge itself, and the sentencing range, and that she would prevent anything beyond that.
Okay, well, I'll just say, Jordan, while you're down there today, I have this, and this was in the Gazette. According to witness list, Mobilati is the first to testify on both Monday and Tuesday. Other testimonies are expected to come from Mobilati's wife, FBI agents, and Colorado Springs Police Chief Adrian Vasquez. So I'm going to ask you tomorrow about the witness list. So while you're down there, please get a hold of it.
Well, I will say that we have Special Agent Ethan Doherty here at the bench ready to testify. I believe he's going to be the first one on the list at this point, from what I see. Okay,
Jordan Baldwin, Peak Investigative Reporter #1, with a team at the hate crime hoax trial of Derek Bernard and Ashley Blackcloud up in Denver. Thanks a lot, Jordan.
Thank you.
Talk to you tomorrow. Okay, now we can bring our guest in because he has no relation to any of that. But The news that we're doing, because this is news, the Homestead Collective, which we'll get into more later. It's up at Prominent Point. It was the Pinery North. It just opened yesterday. Beautiful facility, was just up there. A whole bunch of restaurants under Altitude Hospitality Group, Mitch Yellen, who owns the Pinery, and Trainwreck and Garden of the Gods Cafe, and on and on. But we have Joe Bonavita, Chef Joe Bonavita here. So, Joe, just tell us from a headline standpoint, when people go up to Homestead Collective, what are they going to find inside?
A little bit of everything. You have anything starting at 6 a.m. Dad's Donuts, 8 a.m. Garden of the Gods Cafe, 5 p.m. till kitchen. We have campfire pizza all day, so it's a family fare and for every person in town.
Now, and those are counter restaurants. There's also this Garden of the God Cafe. There's a seating area with table service.
Garden of the Gods Cafe is available during the day. That is full table service seating, and then Till Kitchen at night.
What is Till Kitchen?
So it is a contemporary American restaurant, sharing the same dining room at Garden of the Gods Cafe. We just flip them. So when Garden of the Gods Cafe closes at 3 p.m., Till Kitchen opens at 5 p.m., and then that's a contemporary American restaurant, more elevated.
And did I see a bar there?
We do have a full service bar as well.
Okay. So this is at Prominent Point in the old Pinery North, 9633 Prominent Point. Go check it out. Again, this is Mitch Yellen, who's behind all this. All the restaurants are his under
Yes,
this, and they are a sponsor of the Peak. So that's another reason to go up there, because they're helping to bring this wonderful service to you. Joe, thanks so much for that quick headline report. We'll be talking about Homestead Collective more. When we come back, we're going to be talking about elevating the culinary scene in the Springs. Just got that in. Okay. Okay. That was good. That was really good. Good report. Good audio on the Jordan's phone. That was better than usual, especially that he dropped out last time. Okay, cool. So we're on page 3. So, cooking with quality, elevating the culinary scene in the Springs. Okay. So, cooking with quality ingredients. Okay, so you have 4 minutes. When I give you the time cues, if you give a little blink or a chin nod, let me know that you have it, that you saw it. And
And then you want me going over any basic cooking and...
yeah, if you want to cooking with quality ingredients. I mean, how about you do a hybrid? Because I sort of...
Can I get you any water or coffee?
I'm okay, thank you.
I'll do that elevating... elevating the culinary scene in the Springs and cooking with quality ingredients. So maybe talk about, it's about the food.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure.
Is it hard to find nutritious food? It's hard,
Can be.
We had, was it last week? The week before. I have a friend who started a business of building garden towers for growing hydroponic stuff inside.
I have 12 towers at Homestead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you have? The Juice Plus ones or the?
No, we have Tower Gardens.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's Tower Garden. He made one. He has one here in the Springs that he gets. Cool. He claims he gets like 10x what they get out of there and stuff like that. And he wanted to get it evaluated, and the labs that he went to, like, none of them, they like don't give accurate information. Mm-hmm. He's finding out that the stuff that's on the labels for the produce, it's a lie. Like, they don't really have
100%.
Yeah. So he's trying to find a lab to test his stuff so he can prove it. And that the whole thing's like a scam.
Oh, there's loopholes with all these big commercial farmers. There's loopholes left and right. Organic isn't truly what organic is. Yeah.
So where do you find your
I source with people that I know. I mean,
okay.
I have contacts with farmers, fishermen all around the country. So I'm very particular about who I work with.
Okay.
Most of the places I physically will go there if I can.
Are there places local that you can?
There is. Let me check what the farm name is. It's a good question because I keep
Well, if you want to
forgetting.
do, shout out to any of your vendors or whatever, feel free.
Daniel's farm is Shepherd's Gate, great farm. I'm buying from him, but that's really it for like Colorado Springs. I would say.
It's a shame. It's hard to grow stuff out here.
Yeah, that's why
Okay.
I'm growing it myself.
Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer. It's Business and Culture Monday. Tuesdays is Government and Politics. Wednesdays, Faith and Family. Thursday is Media and Education. And then we rinse and repeat. And we have, as our guest and co-host today, Michelin-trained chef Joe Bonavita, new in town because he's been hired as the executive chef of the Homestead Collective at Prominent Point. And in this section, Joe, who's a Michelin-trained chef and grows a lot of his own food. We were talking about that before. He's going to talk in this context of the program of raising up, elevating the culinary scene in the Springs and how important it is to be cooking with quality ingredients. Joe Bonavita.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, it's very important on, cooking with quality, right? And it's funny when I first came out here, and I was going around and I'm thinking, where can I get fresh produce? And we were just talking about that. In the winter, where do you get tomatoes? They're not coming from here. They're probably coming from, Mexico. So I'm going to grow my own. But you taste it, you taste quality. If you go out to eat and, usually it's more in the fine dining restaurants where you're paying a pretty penny, right? That's where you're usually going to get more quality. But it just takes time sourcing. There's an art to sourcing because of my background, which I've been trained in multiple 3-star Michelin restaurants. Thomas Keller's one of my mentors there, Crepair, and Grant Hackett's at Alinea in Chicago, which when I was there was the best restaurant in North America. And all three of those chefs really drove that quality, first into your head, right? So when I write menus or I'm even cooking at home, I really take my time on sourcing, and it's very important, because I think you mentioned earlier, a lot of the labels when you go to the grocery stores, they're not 100% accurate. Organic isn't what organic thing, is what the media means organic. I just look for things that are they're raised humanely, they're raised sustainably, and they're clean. And if you take a piece of steak, right, just simple filet mignon, a basic filet mignon, all you need to do is put salt on it, cook it, medium rare if that's what you like, and it should be delicious. But most products, especially go to the cheaper grocery stores, you need to drown it in sauce, and it's just because it's cheaper and it's not raised right. So, going to the restaurants, right? We work directly with a lot of farmers. I have relationships with farmers around the country. A lot of times I'll go to those farms, I'll build that relationship, and I'll see how they're raised. If animals are raised correctly, and they're happy, happy meat, happy, tastes. There's actually a duck farmer that I work with, Jergowitz out in Pennsylvania and Lancaster. Their name of their social media is Happy Duck. Tasty Duck, and they use Happy Ducks on their slogans and stuff, right? And you go there and they're just running around, they're all happy animals. They have to live their lives, and then they get harvested, and we cook them, and we just treat them simply because they're delicious. So I give a lot of advice to friends, family, or even a couple of people I met, being here in the Springs. They ask, where do I go? Where do I shop for myself? And I don't say specific stores. Just take time reading, actual packets. If it's beef, it should just say beef on the label. If you see anything else, well, I wouldn't buy it. You might save $1 or $2 buying, that lesser quality, but again, it's not, you're going to feel good when you eat it, and it's just not going to taste so good. So yeah, so I just take my time and, really look out for, the cleaner stuff. If it's carrots, it should taste like a carrot. It should look like a carrot, not neon orange. It should have that like orange hue to it, but not like, look like it should be on a sports car. Tomatoes should look like a tomato. And honestly, when I buy produce, I kind of look for the blemish stuff. I don't want it to be that picture perfect, head of lettuce. You want a little blemish on there because that means you didn't do anything to it when you were growing it. And yeah, that's kind of how I look for quality.
So you have to source. You source from all over the country.
I do, but I try to stay, within a few states around us being here. Texas, Nebraska, Utah, some Montana. I have an amazing bison rancher I'm using in Wyoming.
So where's the best beef steak
Oh,
in America
that's
come
hard.
from?
So my personal favorite is going to be raised in Nebraska, and Texas as well.
Okay. Are you buying quality ingredients? Is it worth it to you? Especially when you have a big family, it can get quite expensive. But we had Michael Enos talking about Tower Gardens and growing that, and the nutrition isn't there. If there's not food in your food, you're not going to be satisfied anyway, no matter how much you save. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. When we come back, we're continuing with Chef Joe Bonavita and talking about the Homestead Collective and the restaurant scene here in the Springs. We'll be right back. Cool. This is just a 2-minute break.
Cool.
Good?
Yeah.
That was good? Feeling good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you'd be shocked. Like some of the farms that I've been to, and like certified Angus beef, for example, they just beat these animals. They don't read them right. There's a farm I work with in Spokane, Washington. It's a Piedmontese breed of cattle, which means they only have 10% body fat. These things are beasts. But he raises them like I would eat off this barn floor. Like, no joke.
Okay.
But he treats them like they're all of his pets, and he raises them right. They eat amazing stuff. Like, you can eat their food. Like, when I'm watching him scoop it in their bins, like when I was there last September, you literally can reach your hand in there and eat it. And it's like, when I look at, talk to farms too, I ask them that, like, what are you feeding them? Would you eat what you feed your animals? Because if you're not going to eat it, why would you want to feed it to them, right? And it shows. It really shows.
And a friend, he made his money very young in supplements, nutrition,
Yeah.
and he started a company called Beyond Organic. He tried to do it as an MLM, and it didn't work out. But he was doing all these ancient farming techniques and all of that, and bringing in the cows that don't have the casein or something thing in them. But he would play worship music in the milking area, and they would be all calm. And in the slaughtering too, he was doing a level of kosher type of slaughter.
Okay.
And but he would, they were peaceful animals, and a lot of it was. And he played down where the watering hole they would go. He was playing worship music down there, and they were happy. They were happy.
Yeah,
animals.
I mean, even like the wild game ranch I buy from, which is true, 100% wild game. They harvest very quick and humane.
Thanks for being here on the Peak News. As we go into the second part of our program, I want to encourage you to be on this webinar that we're having coming up this Thursday, May 22nd, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. And people across the country, you're listening to the Peak. You appreciate what we're doing here, but this needs to go around the country. Every local community should be building out a Peak to take the news back, take the media back. And so join us with historian Bill Federer. Go to thepeak.news, sign up, and please share it around the country so we can bring in as many people as possible, because we the people do need to take the media back. I want to do a shout out to one of our sponsors, Mayweather Boxing and Fitness, also at Prominent Point. I actually went and worked out this morning, did a boxing workout, and then went over and got a Dad's Donuts. No, I didn't, but I really wanted to. But we walked through. But right at Prominent Point too, it's wonderful. If you like, I mean, it's so interesting because there's boxing, cardio, really great way. The time goes by. Great community of people. So go to Mayweather.fit and check out Colorado Springs. It's the only one here in Colorado. And you can get a free workout. So Mayweather Boxing and Fitness. Maybe I'll see you there. So on this segment, we're continuing with Michelin-trained chef Joe Bonavita, who's new in town because he was hired by Mitch Yellen in the Altitude Hospitality Group to be the executive chef over the Homestead Collective at Prominent Point, which just opened up yesterday. So Joe, give us your background. How did you end up being in the, majoring in food?
Sure. It's actually funny. I invented an arsenic filter in water, and I could have went to any of the major league colleges, but I stayed cooking. Started cooking when I was very young, 13 years old. Trained under multiple 3-star Michelin chefs, Thomas Keller, Eric Ripert, and Grant Achatz, three of the best chefs in the world. And I started with them, and I do have a degree from Le Cordon Bleu. I skipped most of the classes because while I was enrolled, I was actually working at Alinea, and the dean of the school, who actually is the dean of the school here in Boulder, of Escoffier Culinary. So it was cool when I moved here, reached out to him to look for some students that wanted to work for us. But yeah, started my career very young in that 3-star Michelin world. More recently, I was in South Florida. Spent 10 years down there. I was a culinary director of a large restaurant group, and before that, I was running some steakhouses around the country. And yeah.
So are you actually find yourself preparing food, or is it more management?
Both. I'm all over the place. Our kitchen actually at the homestead is wide open. You can see everything.
Yeah.
And I'm running around. I spend time on the floor talking to all of our guests, and I'm just helping out where I need to be, and making sure my eyes are everywhere. From if it's during the day, they're watching God's Kitchen, to then running over to Campfire Pizza and making sure that's going well, and making sure production and prep's getting good for our catering, and just being a little bit everywhere.
So what excites you about this industry, and for people that maybe want to get into it, what's it like? What gets you up in the morning?
Sure. Honestly, that's a great question. I love answering that one. I get asked that 20 times a day. I have an opportunity to change people's lives, especially these younger kids, and really set them on a career path. I've had many dishwashers work under me that now are executive chefs, and I have some young guys under me right now that, we're coaching and building them up and bringing them up into management, and really changing their lives and setting them up for success. And also, we get to make people happy every single day. I've had more people get engaged over our meals, first dates, always celebrating, when you go out to nicer restaurants. So it really, it's very motivating.
So I know in the media, having internships is really, really important. In fact, we have some interns running the board right now. We've opened it up. Part of our program here of doing the citizen journalism is young people. We're going to be teaching in D11 broadcast journalism courses in the school system here and all of that. In the world of becoming a chef, how many people come through the chef school area, and how many just work their way up from being bus boys and
Most
things like
of
that?
them, most of, I'd say maybe 80%, of chefs usually just come up, the hard knocks. I have a gentleman that works for us now. He's actually in our Campfire Pizza kitchen. And, he goes to me last week, and he goes, thinking about going to culinary school. I said, save your money. I said, if that's what you want to become a chef, we could teach you that. We'll take you under our wing, and we'll build you up the hard way. But you're going to learn more being in it than if you go to school. You're going to spend the money. You'll learn fancy French terms and some knife cuts and stuff. But actually being in the business is a better way to come up.
Yeah, and you get paid instead of paying.
Exactly. You do get paid.
So you're a new resident here. You just moved here in January.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So as an outsider, and I want you to be real frank, how do you view the culinary scene in Colorado Springs? Where is it strong? Where is it lacking?
Sure. The strong point, I think all the residents that I've met, I would say strongly want better restaurants.
That's a pleasant way of talking around. You just didn't end run around the question there.
There's a lot of fast food here. There's a lot of big box chains, and we see they're all closing. Red Lobster's going out, Olive Garden, they're all going out, right? Because at the end of the day, the market's more expensive. As a consumer, you're going to go spend the same amount of money at Olive Garden, or you're going to go spend the same amount of money out of more of a chef-driven restaurant, or a smaller restaurant group. I think most people are going to lean towards the smaller group. I think here in Colorado Springs, because the military bases and everything, when Fast Food Nation was filmed here, there's a lot of that. And I think it just needs to be built up. When I first moved here, and even my real estate agent and landlord, he goes to me, he goes, "Oh, you're a chef," and we talked about my background, and he looked at me and goes, "Thank you, sir." He's super excited about, just a more chef-driven concepts being here.
Yeah, I mean, it's when the whole up by Shields and the whole Interquest area, which really just got built over the past couple of years, I was really surprised to look around. Not a lot of just restaurants, like it's fast food and chain kind of stuff and things that feel chain kind of stuff, but not really a lot. There's some, but I really thought, especially considering the financial state of the area, people are wealthy up there, that there would be more, and yet it's the fast food restaurants. Why is that? Do they just have the capital, or
To be honest with you, I'm not sure. When I drive around a lot, especially in our area in Briargate and then Interquest, which we're actually putting a Dad's Donuts in that Shields parking lot.
Okay.
That's going to be opening hopefully in June.
As a like a
like
standalone?
like a standalone,
Oh,
just
really?
similar to downtown.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to actually have 3 Dad's Donuts now in Colorado Springs. Yeah, I'm not sure because there is plenty of people here who make very good money, and I think there's across the board, Colorado Springs has, the sustainability to have nicer restaurants. I think maybe operators are just scared to push that boundary. And that's one of the things with Mitch. When I met him, he's not afraid to push the boundary, and he really wants to change the culinary, and hospitality scene here. And that's what brought me here. I had opportunities in Dallas and Nashville and Montana and other cities. And I ended up, meeting Mitch. I spent, a day with him before I flew home after, he made me a job offer. And, just his vision and him saying, what, let's push it and let's bring a really good product here for everybody. That's what made me say, all right, this is where I'm going to come.
So overall, because Mitch can't do everything.
Yep.
That's Mitch Yellen, if people don't know, and has his somewhat of a food empire here.
Yes,
Is how do we go about as a community bringing a better restaurant scene here? Because restaurants are tough. I mean, most go out of business within 5 years. How do we do that?
Sure. I think there needs to be more community between the restaurants, right? I come from larger cities, but all the, like we have in New York and in South Florida, and in Chicago, we've always, like, chefs started our own communities within each other and help bring each other up. If I'm on my day off, I'm going to go support another local business. If I know a chef down the street he's looking for some cooks and I have some extras, or I know of cooks looking for work, I'm going to send them there. You need to build that community within the community, if that makes sense.
Well, it does. I'll just let you know that in almost everything in this town, people don't work well together. People are very insular. People hold on to their thing. They don't share well. And that's a vibe here. So just that is, and I share that with you. Let's break that together.
Yeah, we should.
The whole thing that I don't think people have talked about, and we have it here, is the auto mall. The biggest dollar thing that people buy, you come for a Ford, you buy a Toyota, we should all encourage each other, but that vibe needs to be broken here. Let's do that. In the media, too. We have a very hard time on media day getting other media people here because they're not allowed to come because they have contracts that keep them from being able to come on other media. So that's here. Okay. So finally, you talked about Homestead. We mentioned the restaurants real quick again, but give us the origin of how this project came about.
Sure. The Homestead Collective, the building used to be the original Till. I believe they opened in 2016, 2017, and it was Till. That was the original location. They ended up closing, with COVID, and then I forget he had another concept in there, and then became at Pioneer North, and it was an event hall. And
well, they had like volleyball courts.
Yeah, they had volleyball courts. They had a little bit of everything in
yeah.
there. And then Mitch was going to sell the building. And then something came to him and said, hey, don't sell it. The potential buyer ended up not closing on the property, and he kept it. A couple days later, I think maybe less than a week, they got my resume, and I came out here a couple days after that, and the history was written, and really wanted to take, the altitude hospitality concepts we already have open and, put them in the building. And it's a 20,000 square foot building, so you can't just have one restaurant in there. So we wanted to create an environment where you're literally starting at 6 a.m. at Dad's Donuts, 8 a.m. Garden of the Gods Coffee, Till Kitchen starts at 5 p.m. Campfire Pizza's running all day. We are going to have pickleball courts outside. We have picnic tables and fire pits. And in the winter, we're going to have an ice skating rink. And I'm going to do homemade hot chocolate, and I'll have a small limited menu, that you can take out to the ice skating rink as well. So it's a family affair, and there's something for everybody.
So we have less than a minute left. What's sort of the ethos, the DNA of the concept of Homestead Collective? And by the way, the website, thehomesteadcollective.com.
Sure. It really is that. It's a place where you can come spend an entire day. You can literally have breakfast, go outside, play pickleball, come in for lunch, get some donuts, You know, go home, take a shower, take a nap, bring your, wife or girlfriend or first date, or come back for dinner with some friends and hang out. And it's just an environment for everything,
Okay.
for everybody all day.
Seems like he needs to put apartments above it then.
Nah, it's not a bad idea.
Talk to him when he's back in town. I'm Goldman the Watchman. You're listening to The Peak. We're hanging out with Chef Joe Bonavita. When we come back, we're going to be talking about tips for the household gourmet. We'll be right back. Good segment, man.
Cool, thanks. Yeah, it's a fun place. We're also going to have, I didn't mention it, but we're going to have Sprig too. Sprig.
Okay.
So that is going to come back as poke bowls, protein shakes,
Okay.
salads.
Hey.
Okay, a couple different things.
Yes.
I'll tell you about the gym rant. Jordan got the witness list.
Okay.
Yemi is at the top of the list.
Okay.
And so I sent that to you. He was wondering if you want to say that.
Okay. Maybe.
Sections,
Okay.
Maybe at the top of the list. And also that we could have it on the website. Like I could put it on the website.
Okay. Just quick. Tell me what I need to know.
Should I go put it on the website now?
No. People aren't going to go for that. People aren't going to need that. Okay. But what's the gym rant?
Gym rant 219.
What? 219, and what's the topic?
Vapes.
Vapes?
Dumb and vapes.
So he's ranting on vapes.
Yeah.
Okay.
They look
Two ni-
stupid for men.
Okay, 219, so we're at 511. And do I have a blurb for Wednesday?
I texted that to you.
Okay.
I didn't know if you. I can't print it. It's too long.
Well, you could. You could have thrown it over to my computer. Let's see. Guy Rogers. Okay. Unleashing the fullness of your leadership calling.
That's his motto, and then he's also
Flourishing leadership and former president and CEO of Pinnacle Forum, nationwide network of Christian leaders, transforming leaders who transform culture. Okay. And what's this other thing, the witness list?
yeah, that's what it is.
Let me, okay, now that I can think, let's see. He's a victim. He's not a victim.
So you might want to rent it.
Oh my goodness. It was done to his benefit, and he's saying he's the victim. He's been saying that from the beginning.
So he's sticking to that, I guess.
I know, but if they're guilty of a hate crime, who was the hate against? It wasn't against Yemi.
Well, supposedly.
This thing is so twisted.
All right, but no, it wasn't.
Joe, can you imagine this? This guy
Mhm.
supposedly hires another guy to
Uh-huh.
kill this rapper.
Uh-huh.
He gets convicted. The jury deliberates for like 2 hours.
Uh-huh.
Sent him to life plus like 20 years.
Uh-huh.
But the guy who supposedly he hired is out on the street because there's no murder, there's no bail. So a couple months later, he comes in, he has the trial, and he's acquitted.
Uh-huh.
So this guy is in jail for life
Uh-huh.
for supposedly hiring the guy that didn't do the murder, according to the court.
That doesn't make sense.
Right. That's just one of the backstory.
And you got
for this
life
whole
for
thing.
hiring.
hiring the guy, but they don't know who the actual murderer is because the guy was acquitted, who he supposedly.
So they
hired.
don't know who he actually hired. So there's technically no crime.
But the guy's dead, and supposedly he hired it, and he's.
Oh,
Claiming,
so the guy was
and
actually
he's
killed.
claiming this Derek Bernard, who's behind the hate crime hoax, is claiming that. He's claiming that he's innocent, and
Oh.
this town's crazy, man. It really is. It's a lot behind the scenes. Welcome back to the Peak News. I'm Chaim Goldman, the Watchman. You're listening to us on Business and Culture Day, and really enjoyed hanging out with Michelin-trained chef Joe Bonavita, executive chef of the Homestead Collective at Prominent Point. And in this segment, I like at the end to give you something to just, no pun intended, to chew on, to move forward, to take action. We don't like passive listeners. We love you if you're passive, but we prefer that you're active. And so in this, I said, Joe, let's give people some tips for being a gourmet at home. So, Joe, what are some of the things that people can do to not just, open up a box of Hamburger Helper or whatever, or a TV dinner, all this stuff that's so convenient, cereal, that's a popular one. What can people do, even with basic ingredients, to make it more gourmet?
Sure. When I look at gourmet, right, I think it's just simple cooking. So I think the biggest thing that home cooks do is they're intimidated. That's why they go buy the box stuff, throw it in the microwave or hit the fast food on the way home, Just have fun with it. Go to the grocery store and walk around without a plan. And that's usually how I shop. Don't have a plan. What looks good? Go to the grocery store when you're hungry, because then it makes you, ooh, that looks good, right? So if it's a Cool. You have to find a nice piece of fish. And then just walk around. What do you think that would go good with it? Just play with it and have fun with it and not overthink things and be complicated, but also buy the better ingredients. If there's a smaller butcher shop you can go to, if there is a farmer's market, if there's farms that you can actually buy directly from, that'll make you a better gourmet in its sense by having better ingredients, and then also just have fun with it. Just enjoy your cooking and just have fun, get your family involved, get your friends involved. And I think that'll also translate into the food because then
Making it social.
exactly, you make it social, you have fun, you put your love into it. All of us chefs say, oh, we put our love into our food, and that's
It's
an
the most
ingredient.
important ingredient.
It is the most important ingredient. It honestly is. And I tell all my cooks that in the restaurants too. If you're in a bad mood, your food's going to not be good. But if you're in a good mood, your food's going to be delicious. So just have fun and, buy good ingredients, and that's it.
No, I learned, like you mentioned you did, at an early age. I hung out around my mom and just said, let me make stuff, let me make
Yeah.
stuff. And so I'm an okay, I don't say a chef, I'm an okay cook. But what about if you're home, you got some stuff just around, you're pulling things together. Maybe you have some meat in the freezer, maybe you
Sure.
even have some canned vegetables, God forbid. But, you got that. What are some things that people can do that just take it to another level? So it's not just, dump it and microwave
Sure.
it. Is it spices? Is it, what is
Definitely
it?
use your seasonings. Use salt. Use salt and acid are both seasonings, and it'll pull flavor out. But it's funny.
So what do you say acid? What's acid?
Lemon juice, lime juice, vinegars. But it's funny you said God forbid on canned vegetables, but vegetables are canned at their peak freshness. And
So is that better than frozen?
No, it's the same.
Okay.
But even frozen vegetables too. If you go to the grocery store and you buy canned frozen corn, they froze it when it was super fresh in corn season. So that's never a bad thing. There's certain.
It always tastes weird out of the can, though. It doesn't taste
It can.
like it.
Just
Yeah.
buy better canned vegetables. If you buy the really cheap ones, those 50-cent cans, that could be, not so good. But, there's definitely some canned and frozen things, but also just season your food, pay attention to it, put salt on things. More seasoned things are.
What does salt do?
Well, so salt, and when I mentioned acid, so vinegars and lemon juice, it pulls moisture out. So if you put salt on a sliced tomato and then you eat it, it's pulling the moisture out of the tomato, which is the flavor, and it's just enhancing it without covering it up.
Okay, and lemon juice just seems to make everything better.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, what about, as you said, on a steak, just salt, but
So-
not salt, pepper, garlic?
Sure. So when I cook steaks, I'm just going to put salt on it when I cook it, but then I'll finish it with toasted black pepper. So I'll usually toast my peppercorns, put them in the grinder already toasted, and then finish the steak with that. Because if you put black pepper on a steak and you cook it on high heat, the pepper burns.
Right.
So you get that bitter flavor.
Not too much. I found that this peppercorn thing, it's way too peppery. I've sent back some really expensive stuff, and I felt bad about it, but too much pepper on it.
Yeah, so certain things deserve a peppercorn steak. Like at Homestead, we have a elk's sirloin that's got a peppercorn crust on it, but it's got a peppercorn sauce, so it works.
Okay, fine. That was the final plug for the Homestead Collective. The homesteadcollective.com. Go up. It's at Prominent Point. Check it out. Just open. Lots of different restaurants up there. Really nice vibe. Chef Joe Bonavita, thanks so much for being on The Peak.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me.
And now, Jim Miller, Just a Guy, and The Peak Rants. And today, Jim is ranting about vapes.
Father, I'm overworked, I'm overtaxed. I've run for mayor, I've run for city council to help try to make Colorado Springs a more livable, better place, and not like everywhere else. I'm just a guy, and this is the Peak Rants. Okay. What do we got today? All right, nicotine and stuff, huh? Seems to be a big thing. Mainly the vapes. All right, look, if you're gonna be getting some nicotine. All right, like especially if you're a guy, for crying out loud, just get some tobacco, roll it in some paper, put it in a pipe, and smoke it. Okay? Crying out loud. Say, just if you're gonna dip, just get a big wad of it, put it in your mouth, and do it. I don't smoke anymore. I used to smoke like many packs of cigarettes every day. I haven't smoked for a long time. But it's insane seeing grown men walk around with these little like provocative boys in their mouth, puffing and sucking on stuff. Puffs of fruit smoke coming out, pastry smells and stuff all the damn time. It just seems odd and weird to me for a couple reasons. First off, we demasculate men enough. You don't need to be putting some goofy plastic it, the vapes, they haven't even existed long enough to know how terrible those things are for you. An electronic device that you're popping on and putting in your lungs. I'm sure all those chemicals that are artificially processed and made are just super deliciously good for you. I mean, talk about putting stuff in your body without checking to see if it's good or healthy or okay for you, or shortening your lifespan with no evidence, no testing, no proof, no nothing, right? I think the vaping stuff's kind of goofy, looks silly, seems out of place, seems kind of high risk for no good reason. So, at the same time, I'm one to tell you to live your life and just do your thing. I will tell you how goofy it looks. Remember, if you want it better, be better. I'm Jim Miller. I'm just a guy. This is the Peak Rant.
Cool. Okay. If you need to go,
Yeah.
which you probably do.
Yep, I'm getting blown up.
Thanks so much.
Thank
That
you,
was
sir.
awesome.
I appreciate it.
Hope
Let's
to-
see if I can find this coin.
Oh, let me see if I can send somebody out to help you.
No, it should be short. Yeah, it should be all right. I mean, if I don't find it.
Okay. Well, sometimes another set of eyes.
All right, well, yeah, might as well.
Okay.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, sure. Unless someone heard us on Facebook and ran out. Okay, here. My hand is cramping up a little. We usually do wide.
I'll probably honestly find two. It's just my gift.
Cool.
Thanks.
Get that to Zach. We got to send it to Mitch. Okay. Thanks a lot, Joe. Really, it was really good. Really good. Maybe we can do a regular, like we can do short segment, like a 4-minute thing, regular cooking thing or whatever. What?
Yeah, sure. Remember
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Did we
Yeah,
signal?
yeah, yep. Yeah, I punched it.
Did we signal you or did you?
No, I remembered.
Yeah, so my bad.
Yeah.
But now you're.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us as we begin another broadcast week here on the Peak. And I want to follow up on what Chaim just said in that commercial spot, that you join us this Thursday, May 22nd, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Go to our website, thepeak.news, sign up for this webinar. It's called How We Take the Media Back, a Grassroots Plan for Restoring Trust in American Journalism. And we're going to be sharing Bill Federer, America's historian. He's going to be giving us this background of centuries about how we lost the media, how it went from serving the people to serving special interests, and then laying out what we're doing here at the Peak to a nationwide audience. So also I would ask you as a Peak fan, tell others about it. It's not just something that we're doing here. It's a webinar. It goes across the country, really around the world, but across the country. But please help us promote that and get as many people on, because we want a version of the Peak all across the country. Local people reporting on local stories, supported by local businesses. You know, it's hyper local, and this is how we take the media back. Well, we are here Monday through Thursday, so we will be back tomorrow. It's Government and Politics Day, and we have a legislative update now. 4 months under the Gold Dome. The legislative session in 2025 is over, and we will have as our guest House District Rep Pastor Scott Bottoms giving that legislative update. Then on Wednesday, which is Faith and Family Day, we have Guy Rogers, president of Flourishing Leadership and former president and CEO of Pinnacle Forum, a nationwide network of Christian leaders whose motto is transforming leaders who transform culture. So we're going to be talking about Christian leadership. Coming up next here on The Answer is the Larry Elder Show, so stick around for that. Check out our almost 250 podcasts at thepeak.news. You're sure to find a show, a subject, a guest who interests you. And please spread the word. Let others know about it, because we all need to say the quiet stuff out loud for such a time as this. We'll see you tomorrow. Shalom.